Imagine yourself walking into a room full of people and every eye turns toward you. You want to speak, you want to share your thoughts, but something inside holds you back. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and suddenly the words you know so well just disappear. This moment is not about language, it's about confidence, and confidence is something you can build. Speaking English fluently is not about having a perfect accent, memorizing fancy words, or speaking without mistakes. It's about daring to open your mouth and express yourself with courage. Every person you admire today who speaks English confidently once stood where you are standing right now. Unsure, nervous, afraid of being judged. But they took a step forward, and that step made all the difference. Confidence is not something that falls from the sky. It grows when you practice, when you make mistakes, when you keep speaking even if your voice trembles. Every single mistake is proof that you are learning. The child who learns to walk falls hundreds of times before standing tall. Why should your journey with English be any different? When you speak, remember this. People are not focused on counting your mistakes. They are listening to your ideas, your emotions, your passion. Your voice carries your story, and your story is far more powerful than perfect grammar. Speak with heart, and the world will listen. Don't wait for the right moment or for perfect English to arrive. It never will. The right moment is now. Every word you speak today makes you stronger for tomorrow. Imagine yourself a year from now looking back, grateful that you decided to speak even when you were afraid. That version of you is waiting. So lift your head, take a deep breath, and speak. Speak with courage, with belief, with determination, because confidence is not built in silence. It is built in every word you dare to say. Your voice matters, and the world deserves to hear it. When most people think about speaking English fluently, they immediately imagine perfection. They believe that unless every sentence is flawless, every word is pronounced correctly, and every grammar rule is followed without error, they should remain silent. This mindset is one of the biggest barriers to growth. The truth is, confidence matters far more than perfection. Imagine sitting in a room with someone who speaks English with perfect grammar, but no energy, no emotion, and no courage. Their words may be accurate, but they fail to connect. Now imagine another person who may make grammar mistakes, whose accent might not sound polished, but who speaks with passion, with conviction, and with confidence. Which of the two do you think people will listen to more? Which one do you think will leave a lasting impression? It's always the one who dares to speak with confidence. Perfection is an illusion that often paralyzes people from speaking at all. The fear of being judged or laughed at holds them back, and as a result, their voice remains silent. But silence never builds fluency. You don't learn to swim by standing on the shore, waiting until you know every possible technique. You learn by diving in, splashing, making mistakes, and figuring it out step by step. Language works exactly the same way. Every confident attempt you make, even if it is imperfect, brings you closer to mastery. But waiting until you are perfect before speaking only ensures that you will never truly speak. Think about children learning their first language. They don't care about perfection. They start with broken words, incomplete sentences, and plenty of mistakes. Yet their confidence to try, to keep repeating, to keep expressing themselves is what makes them fluent. If children demanded perfection before speaking, they would never learn to talk at all. Somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we forget this natural process and start demanding perfection from ourselves. We wait and wait until our English is flawless before speaking. But that day never comes because perfection is not the goal of communication. The goal is connection, and connection requires confidence, not flawlessness. Confidence is magnetic. It draws people in. When you speak with certainty in your voice, even if your sentences are simple, people listen. They don't sit there counting how many times you use the wrong tense or mispronounced a word. Most of the time, they don't even notice, because what they feel is your energy and your courage. The fear of being judged often makes you exaggerate mistakes in your own head. You might think everyone is paying attention to your errors, but in reality, they are paying attention to your ideas. And if you present your ideas with belief in yourself, those ideas will shine brighter than any minor mistake. Some of the greatest leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers in the world are not perfect English speakers. They speak with accents, they make mistakes, yet people across the globe listen to them, follow them, and admire them. Why? Because confidence makes their words powerful. Their authenticity is more important than textbook accuracy. They prove that confidence can take you places perfection never will. Confidence gives you the courage to speak in front of a class, to raise your hand in a meeting, to start a conversation with a stranger, to share your ideas without hesitation. And every time you take that step, your fluency improves naturally. When you aim for perfection, you set an impossible standard that kills your progress before it even begins. You may sit silently in class, you may avoid speaking in public, you may reject opportunities to express yourself, all because you think you're not ready yet. But readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels fully ready. You become ready by doing, by speaking, by practicing, by making those little mistakes that teach you what works and what doesn't. Perfection is a destination nobody ever reaches, but confidence is the vehicle that keeps moving you forward, no matter where you start from. Confidence does not mean ignoring your mistakes. It means not allowing them to control you. It means acknowledging that mistakes are natural, but refusing to let them silence you. It means realizing that people respect courage more than accuracy. If you can stand tall, look someone in the eye, and speak your truth, even with imperfect English, you will gain respect. On the other hand, if you hide your voice, afraid of saying the wrong thing, nobody gets to hear your ideas, your perspective, or your story. Silence robs the world of your uniqueness, but confidence gives it back. So instead of chasing the unreachable dream of perfect English, focus on building unshakable confidence. Focus on speaking with energy, with clarity, with belief in yourself. When you do this, perfection slowly follows on its own. Your grammar improves with practice. Your vocabulary grows with use. Your fluency builds with experience. But it all starts with the choice to speak with confidence today, not someday in the future. Confidence opens the door to growth, while perfection keeps it locked. When you think about speaking English, one of the biggest fears that often rises in your mind is the fear of making mistakes. That fear is powerful enough to hold people back from even trying. You might stop yourself mid-sentence, you might avoid conversations, you might remain silent in class or meetings, all because you don't want to say something wrong. But here's the truth. Mistakes are not signs of failure, they are signs of progress. Every time you make a mistake while speaking English, you are actually taking one more step forward. Each mistake is a teacher in disguise, guiding you toward improvement. Without mistakes, learning is impossible, because mistakes are the evidence that you are daring to try. Think about any skill in life. Riding a bicycle, learning to swim, cooking, driving. Did you master it the very first time? Of course not. You fell off the bike, you swallowed water while swimming, you burned food in the kitchen, you stalled the car in traffic. Did those mistakes mean you were a failure? No, they were part of the process. The same is true for English. When you mispronounce a word, use the wrong tense, or forget a phrase, it doesn't mean you are incapable. It means you are in the middle of learning. Each mistake points to a gap you can fill, and filling that gap makes you stronger. The problem is not the mistake itself, but how you look at it. If you see mistakes as shameful, you'll run away from speaking. But if you see them as lessons, you'll welcome them. Every mistake you make today is preparing you for a better tomorrow. Imagine two learners. One avoids speaking to stay safe from making mistakes. The other speaks freely, even if it means making 10 mistakes in one conversation. After 6 months, who do you think will be the better speaker? Always the second one. The person who allows themselves to make mistakes grows faster because they are practicing, learning, and correcting along the way. The person who avoids mistakes avoids growth. Mistakes are also proof that you are pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. If you are never making mistakes, it means you are playing too safe, sticking only to words and phrases you already know, never challenging yourself with new vocabulary or expressions. True progress begins the moment you stretch yourself into unfamiliar territory. That's where mistakes happen, and that's also where real learning begins. If you repeat the same safe sentences every day, you will never expand. But if you take the risk of trying new words, building longer sentences, or expressing complex thoughts, you will stumble sometimes. That stumble is not weakness, it's evidence that you are walking on a new path. Children again provide the best example. When a child learns to speak their first language, they make countless mistakes. They mix up words, they create funny sentences, they mispronounce sounds. Parents don't scold them or tell them to stop speaking until they're perfect. Instead, they encourage them, laugh with them, and gently correct them. And eventually, those children grow into fluent speakers. Why? Because mistakes didn't stop them. they fueled them. As adults, we must relearn this attitude. Mistakes are not the enemy, they are our stepping stones. Sometimes you may feel embarrassed when people laugh at your mistake, but pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's worse, being laughed at for a second or keeping silent for years and never improving? Most of the time, the laughter fades in seconds, but the lesson you learn from that mistake stays with you forever. Every great communicator you admire has been through this stage. They mispronounced, they used the wrong words, they got corrected, but they didn't stop. That's why they reached the level they are at today. Another powerful truth is that mistakes make you memorable. When you make a small error and someone corrects you, that correction sticks in your memory longer than if you had read the rule in a book. Real-life mistakes leave emotional imprints. That slight feeling of embarrassment turns into strong memory, and the next time you're in the same situation, you are far less likely to repeat the mistake. So instead of seeing mistakes as something to avoid, embrace them as natural memory boosters that strengthen your learning. Think of mistakes as proof of courage. They prove that you were brave enough to try. Many people never even attempt to speak, so their English remains locked in their minds. But the one who makes mistakes proves they had the courage to open their mouth and face the challenge. That courage is the real key to fluency. Mistakes don't define weakness, they define effort. And effort is what transforms a learner into a speaker. So, when you next stumble over a sentence or forget the right word, don't let shame silence you. See it as evidence that you are alive in the process of learning, evidence that you are moving forward while others remain stuck. Remember, mistakes are not the opposite of success, they are the pathway to it. Every wrong word today shapes the right words of tomorrow. And if you continue making mistakes, you are also continuing to grow. When people set out to speak English, they often put all their focus on grammar, as if grammar alone will define their ability to communicate. They spend hours memorizing rules, fearing that one wrong tense or misplaced preposition will ruin everything. But the reality is, people don't remember you for your grammar, they remember you for your story. What moves hearts, what inspires change, what connects humans is not the technical accuracy of your sentences, but the power of the message you carry. Your story, your experiences, your struggles, your dreams, your emotions is far more powerful than the mechanics of language. You can have flawless grammar and still bore everyone if there is no passion behind your words. But even with imperfect English, if you share something real, something honest, something meaningful, people will listen. Think about the speakers and storytellers you admire. Do you admire them because they never made a grammatical mistake? Or do you admire them because they spoke with conviction, because their words carried weight, because they dared to express what others only felt silently? The human brain is not wired to remember grammar rules. It's wired to remember stories. Stories stick. Stories inspire. Stories make us feel something. And when you speak English, your story is what gives your words life. You don't need perfect grammar to make someone laugh. You don't need flawless sentences to make someone cry. You don't need advanced vocabulary to inspire someone. You just need to share your truth in the language you have right now. Often, learners hold back from speaking because they worry about being judged for small mistakes. But here's a secret. Most listeners don't even notice those mistakes because they are too busy listening to what you are saying, not how you are saying it. When someone tells you about a struggle they went through, a dream they are chasing, or a lesson they learned, your mind doesn't pause to check if they used was instead of were. Instead, your mind connects with their emotion. Language is not just about correctness, it's about connection. And connection is built on honesty, vulnerability, and stories that touch the human heart. Your story also has the power to build bridges across cultures. English is a global language, spoken by people from every corner of the world, each with different accents, different grammar habits, and different vocabularies. Yet what brings people together is not that everyone speaks perfectly, it's that everyone shares themselves. When you share your story in English, you give people from other countries a chance to see the world through your eyes. You let them understand your struggles, your traditions, your dreams. That kind of sharing is far more valuable than any perfect grammatical structure. Grammar can decorate your sentences, but your story gives them soul. Without a story, language is lifeless. Think about a time when someone spoke perfect English but left you with nothing to remember. Now think about a time when someone with broken English told you about their journey, their failures, or their dreams, and it touched you so deeply that you still remember it. That's the power of story over grammar. It's the difference between speaking to impress and speaking to connect. And real confidence comes when you stop worrying about impressing people with correctness and start focusing on connecting with people through your story. The fear of judgment can sometimes blind you to the truth. You might believe people are secretly counting every mistake you make, but in reality, they are searching for meaning in your words. They are waiting for something they can relate to, something they can feel. Your story gives them that. People may forget the exact words you used, but they will never forget how your story made them feel. That is the essence of communication. That is what makes you memorable. When you speak English, don't aim to be a grammar book. Aim to be a storyteller. Grammar will improve naturally with time, but your story is already inside you, waiting to be told. Your story of learning English, your story of facing fear, your story of chasing opportunities. These are not just your struggles, they are universal struggles. Someone out there needs to hear them, because in your story, they might find courage for their own. And if you remain silent, worried about grammar, that person may never receive the inspiration they needed. Your story doesn't need to be grand to be powerful. Even small stories can make a big difference. Sharing how you overcame nervousness in your first English conversation, or how you managed to introduce yourself in a new country, or how you practiced late at night when everyone else was asleep. These are small stories, but they are real, relatable, and inspiring. They show effort, they show humanity, they show growth. People respect and connect with that far more than polished grammar. So, when you open your mouth to speak English, remember that the value lies not in delivering perfect sentences, but in delivering a piece of yourself. Grammar is a tool, but your story is the heart. And if you speak from the heart, your words will travel farther than you can imagine, no matter how imperfect they may sound. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build. Many people believe that some individuals are naturally confident speakers, but the truth is, confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. No one wakes up one day and suddenly feels fearless about speaking English. The confidence you admire in others is a direct result of countless hours of practice, of speaking again and again, even when it was uncomfortable. Practice is the foundation of confidence, and every word you speak is another brick that strengthens it. When you first start speaking English, it feels shaky. Your voice might tremble. You may stumble over words. Your sentences may feel broken. That's perfectly normal. It's the same with anything new. Imagine the first time you tried to ride a bicycle. You felt unsteady. You probably fell, and maybe even got bruised. But you didn't stop because of those falls. You got back up and tried again, and eventually, what once felt impossible became second nature. Speaking English follows the same law. The trembling, the stumbles, the pauses, they are not signs that you lack confidence. They are signs that you are building it. Each attempt is a workout for your speaking muscles, and with enough repetition, your voice grows steady, your words flow more easily, and your fear slowly fades. Practice also has the power to break the chain of fear. Often the reason you feel nervous is not that you cannot speak, but because you have not spoken enough. The fewer times you practice, the louder your fear becomes. Your brain convinces you that speaking is dangerous, that mistakes will embarrass you, that people will laugh. But when you practice regularly, you prove to your brain that none of those fears are real. Every time you practice and survive, every time you speak and realize people are not as critical as you thought, your brain rewires itself to associate speaking with safety rather than danger. That shift doesn't come from theory. It comes only from practice. Confidence through practice also means exposing yourself to different situations. If you only speak in your comfort zone, to the same people, in the same way, your growth will be limited. But when you push yourself to practice in new environments, speaking to strangers, joining discussions, participating in meetings, trying presentations, you stretch your ability further. Each situation you face adds another layer of confidence. The first time will always feel intimidating, but once you survive it, the next time feels easier, and with every repetition, what was once frightening becomes normal. Another beautiful thing about practice is that it helps you see your own progress. In the beginning, you might feel like nothing is improving, but if you stay consistent, one day you will suddenly notice how far you've come. You'll realize you can now introduce yourself without hesitation, or explain your thoughts more clearly, or hold a short conversation without freezing. These small victories, born from practice, are proof that confidence is growing inside you. And once you notice progress, it fuels you to practice even more, creating a cycle of growth that keeps building. Practice also helps you accept mistakes more naturally. When you only speak occasionally, every mistake feels huge, like a disaster. But when you practice daily, mistakes become routine, just part of the process. You stop giving them so much power. Instead of fearing them, you brush them off and keep speaking. Over time, you realize that mistakes don't stop conversations. Silence does. And because you practice speaking despite mistakes, your confidence rises, not because you are perfect, but because you know you can keep going no matter what. Many learners make the mistake of waiting until they feel confident before practicing. They say to themselves, "Once I have confidence, I'll start speaking." But this thinking traps them forever because confidence does not appear magically before practice. It only appears after practice. The real formula is this: first you practice, then you gain confidence. It's like saying, "Once I'm strong, I'll go to the gym." No, you go to the gym to become strong. In the same way, you speak to become confident, not the other way around. Daily practice doesn't need to be perfect or formal. Even small, consistent steps matter. Talking to yourself in English, recording your voice, practicing in front of a mirror, reading aloud, joining small conversations. These are all simple ways to build confidence. What matters is consistency. A little practice every day is far more powerful than waiting for one big moment. Confidence is not built in a single speech. It is built in the countless small moments when you choose to speak, even if no one is listening. Over time, practice not only makes you confident in your language skills, but it also shapes how you see yourself. Each time you speak, you prove to yourself that you are capable, that you are growing, that you are not the same person you were yesterday. This shift in self-belief is what transforms a hesitant learner into a confident speaker. And once you start believing in yourself, others begin to believe in you too. Confidence is contagious. It spreads from your words to your listeners, and people respond to it. So remember, confidence doesn't arrive fully formed. It grows with practice. Every word you speak, every conversation you attempt, every time you push yourself a little further, you are watering the seed of confidence inside you. One day, that seed will grow into unshakable strength, but only if you keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep moving forward. One of the biggest illusions that stops people from becoming confident English speakers is the idea of waiting for the perfect moment. You tell yourself, "I'll start speaking when my grammar improves," or "I'll practice when I learn more vocabulary," or "I'll speak in front of people when I feel more confident." You keep postponing, convincing yourself that one day in the future everything will align and you will finally be ready. But that day never comes, because the perfect moment is nothing more than a comfortable excuse to delay action. The right moment is not someday in the future. It is right now, in this very second, with the English you already have, with the courage you can gather today. Waiting for perfection is a silent trap. The longer you wait, the more your fear grows. Every time you hold yourself back, your brain gets more used to silence, and the act of speaking begins to feel bigger and scarier than it really is. You may think you're protecting yourself by waiting, but in reality, you're only strengthening your hesitation. Confidence does not arrive by waiting, it arrives by doing. You can't learn to swim by standing on the shore and telling yourself you'll jump in one day. You learn by entering the water today, no matter how nervous you feel. Speaking English works in exactly the same way. The right moment to begin will always be now, never later. Think about how many opportunities might be passing you by while you wait. Maybe you could have spoken up in class. Maybe you could have introduced yourself to someone new. Maybe you could have asked a question in a meeting. Maybe you could have joined a conversation with friends. Each time you stay silent, you miss a chance to practice, to grow, to show yourself what you're capable of. And the longer you postpone, the more those opportunities slip away. Time doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Life keeps moving, and if you don't act now, you may look back months or even years later, wishing you had started sooner. There's a powerful truth that every confident speaker understands. Readiness is created, not waited for. No one wakes up one morning fully ready to speak English without fear. They create readiness by trying, by speaking, by failing, by learning, and by standing up again. If you wait for confidence before you speak, you'll wait forever. If you speak first, confidence will come as a result. It is through taking action today, in the present, that you build the future you want. The idea of the right moment is often tied to fear of judgment. You tell yourself, I'll wait until I'm perfect, so no one can laugh at me. But the irony is, people respect courage far more than perfection. When you speak with the knowledge you already have, people see bravery, they see effort, they see a person who is trying. And that is far more admirable than someone who stays silent, waiting for perfection that never arrives. Even if you make mistakes, people remember your effort, not your errors. Another reason people wait is because they underestimate the value of small beginnings. They think if they can't give a perfect speech, it's not worth starting. But small steps are the building blocks of greatness. Speaking a few sentences today may seem small, but it plants a seed that grows with every repetition. Tomorrow, those few sentences turn into longer ones. Next week, you can hold short conversations. In a few months, you're sharing your thoughts without hesitation. None of that happens if you keep waiting. The grand speeches, the confident conversations, the fluent flow, they all begin with the small, imperfect steps you take today. You may feel that you don't have enough vocabulary or grammar knowledge to start speaking now, but the truth is you will never have enough. Even native speakers don't know every word. Even they make mistakes. What you have today is already enough to begin. You don't need thousands of words to express yourself. You need courage to use the words you already know, and by using them, you'll naturally learn new ones along the way. The process of speaking is itself the greatest teacher. Think about a year from now. Imagine two versions of yourself. The first version waits, telling themselves they are not ready yet. A year later, they are still waiting, still afraid, still silent. The second version speaks, even if clumsily, even if nervously. A year later, they have practiced hundreds of times, faced their fears, grown in confidence, and built fluency. Which version will you be? The only difference between the two is a choice. The choice to act now instead of later. The right moment is never about having perfect conditions. It's about making the most of what you have today. There will never be a moment when you suddenly feel no fear, no hesitation, no doubt. Fear will always whisper in your ear that you're not ready. But the moment you decide to act despite the fear, that's when transformation begins. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in the middle of it. And that decision can only be made now, not someday in the future. Every time you open your mouth and speak, no matter how imperfectly, you are proving to yourself that you don't need to wait anymore. You are building the future version of yourself with every word you say today. The longer you delay, the more distant that confident version of yourself becomes. But the moment you act now, the moment you speak now, you bring that version closer, and soon, what once felt impossible becomes normal, all because you chose to begin today instead of waiting for tomorrow. Your voice is not just a sound, it is your identity, your story, your courage, and your presence in the world. When you choose silence out of fear, you are not only holding back English words, you are holding back yourself. You are hiding your ideas, your thoughts, and your perspective that could inspire someone else, that could help someone else, that could even change someone else's life. Many people underestimate the value of their own voice, believing that it doesn't matter, that no one cares what they have to say. But the truth is, your voice matters more than you think. It is unique, and no one else in the world can replace it. Your way of seeing the world, your story, your experiences, all of these are wrapped inside your voice. If you don't share them, the world loses something valuable. When you speak English, don't see it only as an exercise in language. See it as an opportunity to contribute. Every time you speak, you give people access to your world. You allow them to learn from your journey, from your struggles, from your victories. You may think your story is ordinary, but for someone else, it could be extraordinary. You may think your perspective is small, but for someone else, it could be exactly the encouragement they need. Your voice doesn't need to be perfect to make a difference. It only needs to be heard. Think about the people who inspire you. Often, it's not because they speak flawlessly, but because they speak truthfully. They have the courage to express themselves even when their words are simple. Their honesty, their passion, and their willingness to speak give you strength. And you have the same ability. You have the power to inspire others in the same way, simply by daring to share your voice. Imagine someone listening to you and thinking, if they can do it, maybe I can too. That is the ripple effect of your voice. It travels farther than you can ever see. Your voice also matters because it builds your presence in the world. Every time you speak up, in class, in meetings, in conversations, you remind yourself and others that you exist, that your opinions have value, that you are not invisible. Silence makes people overlook you, but your voice makes them notice you. It allows you to participate, to be counted, to be respected. When you remain silent, people might assume you have nothing to say. But when you speak, even if your English is imperfect, they realize you have something meaningful to contribute. Over time, this builds respect and trust, and it establishes you as someone worth listening to. There's also a deep emotional reason why your voice matters, because using it frees you from fear. The longer you keep silent, the heavier fear becomes, like a weight pressing down on you. But when you finally speak, when you release the words trapped inside you, that weight begins to lift. You discover that your voice has power, that it can survive mistakes, that it can carry meaning. And every time you use it, your fear shrinks a little more. Eventually, your voice becomes not something you are afraid of, but something you are proud of. Many people think their accent makes their voice less valuable, but the opposite is true. Your accent is not a weakness. It is proof of your roots, of your identity, of your courage to speak in a second language. It shows that you are brave enough to step beyond your comfort zone and communicate with the world. Instead of hiding your accent, embrace it. Let your voice carry your unique rhythm, because that uniqueness is what makes people remember you. Your voice doesn't need to sound like anyone else's. It only needs to sound like yours. Your voice also matters because it has the power to break barriers. English is not just a language, it is a bridge. Through it, you can connect with people from countries you've never visited, cultures you've never experienced, and lives you've never imagined. But that bridge only works if you walk on it, if you use your voice to cross it. The more you speak, the more you expand your world, and the more your world expands, the more opportunities come your way. Jobs, friendships, collaborations, new experiences, they are all waiting on the other side of your voice. And finally, your voice matters most to you. When you use it, you remind yourself of your own strength. You prove to yourself that you are capable, that you are growing, that you are worthy of being heard. You don't need to compare yourself with anyone else, because your voice is not meant to compete. It is meant to express. It is the tool you were given to leave your mark in the world. If you silence it, you silence your chance to grow. But if you use it, even imperfectly, you affirm your place in the world and move closer to the confident speaker you are becoming. So every time fear tells you to stay quiet, remember this truth. Your voice matters, not when it is perfect, not when it sounds like someone else's, not when you think you're ready. Your voice matters now just as it is, and the world is waiting to hear it. So, my friend, remember this. Confidence is not built in silence. It is built in action. Every word you dare to speak, every sentence you attempt, every mistake you make brings you closer to the speaker you dream of becoming. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is now. Don't wait for flawless English, because your courage matters more than perfection. And don't ever think your voice is too small, because it has the power to reach hearts, open doors, and change lives, including your own. The world does not need another perfect speaker. The world needs you, your voice, your story, your ideas, your passion. Speak with confidence, even when your hands shake. Speak with courage, even when your voice trembles. Speak with belief, even when doubts whisper in your ear. Because every time you speak, you are not just learning English. You are proving to yourself and to the world that you are unstoppable. Your journey as a confident English speaker has already begun. Now step forward, open your mouth, let the words flow, and let the world hear the voice it has been waiting for. Your voice.